Hey everyone, in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use these triads from Two Thin Coats to get different color flesh tones on our models. I'm going to be doing both dark and light skin tones on these Cadian models that I've been building up and painting, including I got a few of the Arminka-esque models, I got the new Kazarkin Sergeant model, and a couple of models for my squads here. So let's see how it works out. I'm going to actually start out with the darker skin tones, since this is something we don't often see in tutorials. I want to start out with Druid Flesh here. I've already mixed it up, so I'm going to get a little bit on my wet palette, and I'm going to start out with the Melt-A-Gunner. Alright, so let's get my painting handle, my Red Grass Games painting handle here, and best I can keep this in focus, let's start applying some of that to the skin of our models. I want to get in there, try not to get any on the helmet. Alright, get some on the hands there. So this stuff seems to be going on pretty good. I had a little too much water in the well of my bristles there, so it bubbled up a little bit, so I may have to do a couple of thin coats for this first base coat here. Definitely not the darkest skin tone. This is more like a medium, kind of a chestnut almost. Next, we're going to move on to the Paladin Flesh. So I've already put a little bit on my wet palette and got some on my brush here. This is also a very medium tone. So I'm going to hit the highlights here on the skin. I'm going to go for the raised areas and try to leave behind the recesses as we do our layer paint. I'm unsure yet if I want to put a wash on this or not. So for now, we're just going to go ahead and put our base layers on here and then find out if we need a wash later. Now when applying this layer, we want to be careful not to get into those deep recesses. We want to try to leave them there and use that original base tone as kind of our shade if possible. When I'm doing this darker skin tone, I often don't put shades on them. Now for the final color that we're going to be applying, it's called Barbarian Skin. So it's the brightest color in this triad here from Two Thin Coats. And so we want to hit the most raised areas. Tip of the nose there, the knuckles, right? We want to get those like little raised areas, them, accent them a little bit. Pop on the model. Now with this third color, we can really start to see how just using our base coat as a shade can really work out on this actually. Alright, I'm going to try my best to keep this in focus, letting you all see me put fine highlights on the cheeks of this model. It's very, very tricky. Alright, there we go. So, we got all three of the triads on there, but they still need the final one there. Barbarian Skin still needs to fully cure. We can really see how those tones work out. I'm thinking I may actually need to do a little bit of shading on this in order to make it pop just a little bit more. Let's see what happens. Alright, here we go. I'm going to try to use a little bit of the Flesh Wash from Two Thin Coats. This appears to be a darker wash. So I'm going to give it a shot, see what I think. Alright, I got a little bit on my wet palette here, a tiny bit on my brush, and the first place I'm going to put it is actually in the mouth here. Looking that up, and I'm going to put a little bit, I'm going to be very controlled with it around those eyes I just painted. What I don't want to do is darken the eyes I've just put in. There we go. I'll let that dry a little bit. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and do a little bit of recess wash too. create a little more definition in between the lines of the hands. Not popping quite as much as I'd like it to. We also add a little bit here into the crease, not too much. Go ahead and we'll let that cure. We'll see what it's like when it's done. Okay, next we're going to start putting some of the lighter skin tones on our Minka-esque model here. We'll start out with Barbarian Brawn, which is the base coat in this more lighter skin triad. So we go around, begin applying that to our model here. This model is just loaded full of great details too, so let's make sure we don't miss anything. Next thing that we're going to do is, after applying our Barbarian Brawn, we're now going to apply Dwarven Skin. So this is the mid-tone here in the triad. So once again, we're going to avoid all the recesses. We're going to avoid all the recesses and just apply it to the raised areas. Alright, now with our mid-tone on, we're going to apply our lightest tone, which is Elven Skin. So once again, we just want to try to hit the most raised areas on our model. The knuckles, the bridge of the nose, the edge of the cheeks. Hard for me to see the finer details while painting on the camera, so I'm going to take a moment, clean a few of these up off camera, and then we'll come back. So to help blend everything a little bit better, what I've decided to do was go ahead and give this a full wash over the face, with a couple extra little washes of flesh shade into the recesses. I've gone ahead and done the hands as well, but I want to show you real quick in video a great way to create a little bit extra definition on those hands, especially as you come up to the back part of the hand here on the back side. You can do with a little bit of wash as you can actually make lines down. So the raised areas of the tendons of the fingers come back. And goes down in there like that. Not anything on the top. A little bit there in the recesses. So you can do that in order to help create a little more definition on the back side of that hand. And then same with the face. We'll want to just hit like the recesses like the ears. Let's do little creases there. Here again. A little more around the eyes. The other thing I'm going to recommend is maybe take your mid-tone and your shadow, blend a little bit of those together, okay? So our Barbarian Brawn and Dwarven Skin, and then use that blend to help transition between the cheeks, like from the cheeks at the high part down to the shadows down here. Like, as you can see, that will also help blend everything in just a little bit better. So here is the results of a little more play that I've done with the face. This tutorial is not really about eyes or teeth or anything, so I'm not going to go into detail quite how I've done that. I have another tutorial where I have covered that. But I do want to touch on a couple things that I did discover real quick. So for the lips, what I had done was create a blend of Elven Skin and glistening gums from Two Thin Coats. So kind of a purple paint and the brighter skin paint. And that helped for me to get a little bit of that purplish red tonal difference on the lips. But they may not be showing up well because of the way I've done the teeth, just barely inside the mouth, to be making her yell. The other thing that's important is that I created a blend of Barbarian Brawn and Dwarven Skin, so the shadow and the mid-tone. And what I did with that is on the areas like the cheeks there, to create that shift in tone from the high part of the cheeks to the mid part there and down to the shadow. I used that in order to kind of blend it down, since there's a lot more skin showing. I didn't need to do that on the hands or anywhere else, but mostly just there on the cheeks. Also, I think I added a little bit just above the eyebrows and the top of the nose there, just below the bandana, in order to help also create a little bit darker of a skin tone there, so that the highlights popped a little better. But I gotta say, overall, I'm no golden demon painter, and this is pretty good that I was able to pull that off with these paints here for the first time using them on a model this way. So now we finished up kind of a more medium skin tone model with my other version of Arminka Lusk here. Let's go ahead and try to do a more fair-skinned version. So I've already base coated this in Barbarian Brawn. That's no different. What I'm going to do now, instead of actually trying to protect the recesses, I'm going to go ahead and cover all of the skin and Dwarven Skin. And this way, it's a way that we can try to achieve a lighter skin tone on this model. For our next step, we're going to layer on some Elven Skin, but this time we're not going to cover up the Dwarven Skin in the recesses, so we are going to leave the Dwarven Skin there as kind of the shade instead. So get some of your Elven Skin on your paintbrush and start hitting those raised areas on the model. Right, you want to get raised areas on the fingers back here, the hands, and then blend that together. Yep. There we go. Alright, so work your way around the model, and like I said, just leave the recesses there. Just try to get all the raised areas of skin. Next thing I'm going to do is take some of the flesh shade from Two Thin Coats. I'm actually going to water it down. So I'm going to about a 50-50 mix here of shade to water, and I'm going to apply it to our model. So what this will hopefully do is just get those recesses much more subtly and start to create the shadows on this model. You can see how thin that shade is, right? It's not as thick as what it was. Like when I applied it earlier on the other models without thinning this down, it really changed it from a light fair tone to a changed it from a fair light tone to a bit of a mid-tone kind of skin. So here, so one little thing I've done to kind of help out is added a little more shade there on the lower part of the cheek, just to help give it a little more tonal difference. I just put it on there, so it still needs time to dry. Then what I want to do is go back over the raised areas with some Elven Skin. So let's start out like we typically do. Let's go over the knuckles and other kinds of finer points, raised area of the skin. Now these cleanups will also include not only the knuckles, but like the bridge of the nose, and other little elements like that on the face. Just go around, get all those highlights in place, and then we'll come back and clean this up just a little bit more. So one thing I'm going to do to help get the right shade I want is I'm actually mixing my Dwarven Skin and my Elven Skin together here. So a little bit stronger on the Elven Skin. So you can see I've now mixed a pretty good mid-tone in between the two.
I'm going to try to use this to help blend my highlights into my shaded area. So let's see how this works out. Okay, I got my left model back here again. So let's go ahead and use our little blend we got here. So it's a little brighter than I had intended. So let's go ahead and darken it down just a little bit. I'll just add some more Dwarven Skin into that mix. Right, because that's our almost like our base coat underneath. So I'm just going to hit it up. There we go. All right, so that actually, there we go. That's actually starting to blend a little bit better. So I'm going to go around and find those moments where I think it's a little bit of a harsh transition right now, and try to blend that back in across this model. So I got most of the way through filming this tutorial, and the other 5 models I originally started with, their skin's all done. But I decided I wanted to add one more thing to this tutorial. So the other alternative for a triad that you can use for skin tones is Curass Leather, Boar Hide, and Fur Cloak. So these really are meant for kind of leather, but because of their pink warmish tones, they also work really well for skin. So working with the Curass Leather here, which is kind of like the equivalent of Rhinox hide in a way, I'm going to start with that and base coat this model here, getting all of its flesh. So let's start out with the hands here and get a nice even coat. Now I already have Rhinox hide by GW on there on my leather straps, but don't worry, I can get this in focus. This won't be taking away from the leather that I'll be doing on the model. I'll be highlighting my leather in different colors than what these skin tone colors are. That'll help make it so they don't seem to be one and the same. It's one of the tricks when painting darker skin tones and you start to use some of those leather colors. You do got to be careful not to use the exact same ones through and through, so this way there's actually a difference between your skin and your leather, which there should be. Next, we're going to apply the Boar Hide to the raised areas of the skin. So once again, we're looking for things like the knuckles, the fingers, the back of the palm, anywhere, just avoid the recesses and get the raised areas here. Now this is applying a little bit strong. I'm hoping that as it dries, color will tone down a little bit. Alright, before I got too far, I went ahead and added the eyes and teeth in there. So now we're going to do the final highlights. So for this, we're going to use Fur Cloak. Alright, so we're just going to get a tiny bit on our brush. Now this is for our most raised areas. So we're looking for knuckles, right? We're looking for, and there's several knuckles that we want to hit. Oops, I got a little sloppy, but luckily I got more on my wet palette, so I can go back and fix that real quick. We also want to hit things like the tip of the nose, tops of the cheeks, So as you can see there, adding these fine little highlights there at the end could really help this pop. So I'm going to clean up a couple little mistakes I just made on that left hand, and this one should be finished up. Well, that's it. So using these paints here, which are from the Tooth and Coats line, right? But they have their equivalents in the Games Workshop range or other paint ranges. They're just triads of colors. But I just wanted to try these out, show them off here, and show that you can paint several different skin tones and in different manners too. The last one I did here was without any shades at all, and I just painted it right in just using the 3 colors. These other ones for the fairer skin, I did use shades on them and then even some blending on one of the Minka-esque faces, right? And then I'd also done some kind of darker tones for my Khazarkin, who looks like he's been weathered a bit. And then more of a chestnut tone for this Melted Gunner down here at the bottom. So all in all, I've got about 4 to 5 different skin tones depending on how you look at this. And I've done it with a variety of different paints and doing it a different way. I do recommend, if you want kind of a finer finish and you want to get into more detail than what I've done here, there are definitely great tutorials out there for doing that, but the key to getting better blends is to really just mix your paints up more and layer them in that way, and do it really thin, small layers at a time to help get those blends down across your models. I'm looking more for above tabletop standard, and so this is how I think is an easy way to do it. I've taken a little more care on my 3 character models. I've done it a little more quickly on my non-character models. Your finish level is your choice and depends on what you want to do. But hopefully this tutorial and just walking you through the different kind of paint colors I use, even though you may not have these specific paints, you can generally see the colors here and what I was going for. Or I'm sure you can look these paints up and find their color equivalent in whatever range that you use. I know if you bought in to the Tooth and Coats range, they did come with a conversion chart to help you understand which colors these matched up to from other ranges. So hopefully you can find that out there on the internet as well. So definitely something I recommend to try out, and don't be scared of trying different skin tones. I think it's really fun and an easy thing to do. And honestly, the darker skin tone with the really warm colors to it, like I did on this last one, I find easier than doing fair skin. And that's my opinion, but honestly, after the number of models I've done with faces on them, I'd really prefer to paint them that way than the fair skin. So you can look at that and try it out for yourself for the first time, see what you think. All right, folks, that's all I have for you today. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you have fun board gaming. And as always, Cadia stands.